My wife's secret lover met a horrifying end in our pool. You think you know betrayal? Think again. Imagine coming home to find your wife's secret lover taking a dip in your pool, leaving behind a trail of sickening clues. I'm telling you, the scream he let out when he discovered my little surprise was music to my ears. You won't believe how far I went to make him pay, and trust me, you're going to want to stick around to the very end to see how this twisted tale unravels, because this isn't just a story of revenge, it's a blueprint for dismantling betrayal piece by piece. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into the chilling details of how I uncovered my wife's affair and orchestrated a payback she'd never forget, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of the mind-blowing stories we share here. Your support helps us bring more incredible true accounts to light. Enjoying my pool, aren't you, Julian? This is where your little paradise ends. Those words echoed in my head. A silent promise I made 3 weeks ago when I found out my wife, Bethany, was cheating on me. Not just cheating, but bringing her bold lover right into our home, letting him swim in the very pool I'd busted my back for. For 15 grueling years, I, as a construction manager named Arthur Vance, climbed the ladder, from dusty construction sites to running multi-million-dollar projects. All of it for our dream home, for Bethany, for a life I thought was perfect. A stunning wife, a house that made our neighbors green with envy, and a pool so pristine it looked like it belonged in a luxury magazine. I thought I was living the American dream, until the truth slammed into me like a freezing wave. It was a Tuesday in late autumn. I left the Northwood project site early, hoping to surprise Bethany. Maybe we could grab some takeout, fire up the outdoor pizza oven, and pretend we still enjoyed each other's company. I pulled into our driveway at exactly 3:23 p.m. Bethany shouldn't have been home from her graphic design job for another 2 hours. The house looked picture perfect, as always, but a cold dread began to settle in. The backyard gate, usually secured, was cracked open. That gate was always shut. Bethany was meticulous about it. We hadn't invested $60,000 in a custom-built pool to let stray animals wander in. As I walked out back, I saw ripples in the shimmering water. Not from the gentle breeze or the automatic cleaner. These were clearly human. My gut clenched. The deck laid out a scene I desperately didn't want to decipher. 2 plush striped towels I'd never seen before, an expensive bottle of artisanal rosé with a French label, and 2 glasses. One of them was marked with an unfamiliar peach-colored lipstick. My blood ran cold. Here's the thing about Bethany. For 9 years, she'd exclusively worn the same shade of crimson lipstick, Crimson Kiss. I knew it because I'd restocked her supply countless times. But the lipstick on that glass wasn't crimson. It was that soft, peachy hue, the kind some women choose when they're trying to recapture their youth. A men's luxury watch, a gleaming silver chronometer, sat forgotten on the side table. Not a cheap knockoff, but the genuine article, the kind that costs more than most people's annual salary. I dipped my fingers into the water. It was still warm. Whoever had been swimming hadn't left long ago. That's when the pieces of the puzzle started clicking into place, one after another, like falling dominoes. Bethany had been different lately. Not in any obvious ways. She's far too cunning for that. But in subtle shifts, the kind only a husband of 13 years would notice. She'd started dressing with a sharper edge for work. Her usual practical business casual had given way to tailored outfits that subtly accentuated curves I hadn't seen in years. Her phone had become an extension of her hand, and she'd taken to answering calls in the other room, her voice hushed and guarded, as if she were plotting a corporate takeover. Working late rolled off her tongue with practiced ease. Client pitches, strategy meetings, design reviews. Always a new, sophisticated reason why she wouldn't be home until after dinner. And when she did finally walk through the door, she looked impeccable, perfectly coiffed, not like someone who'd just endured a stressful day, but like someone who'd just left a spa. And then there was the pool. My God, the pool should have been the loudest alarm bell. For months, I'd come home to find it absolutely spotless. The water crystal clear, the chemical balance perfect, the pH always just right. But Bethany despises pool maintenance. She always has. For years, she'd complained it was too much work, too expensive, too cold, even in the blistering heat of July. She hadn't set foot in it in 4 summers. Yet somehow, it was flawless, every single day. The truth hit me with the force of a wrecking ball to the chest. But beneath the initial wave of agony, something much colder began to solidify within me. Bethany had made one crucial error. She'd gotten sloppy. And if there's one invaluable lesson I've learned in 15 years of construction, it's this. When people get sloppy, the entire structure inevitably collapses. For weeks after that gut-wrenching discovery, I started observing everything as if my life depended on it. Bethany's excuses about project deadlines for the upcoming Vega campaign were absolute nonsense. Her job, designing brochures and social media graphics for local small businesses, was about as high pressure as a leisurely Sunday brunch. Yet suddenly, she was acting like she was spearheading a global marketing conglomerate, carrying top-secret blueprints in her designer handbag. And good heavens, the way she had started to dress. My wife used to stumble out of bed looking like she'd rather be anywhere else, throwing on the nearest unwrinkled blouse. Her style was conservative, professional, and honestly, as exciting as watching paint dry. But sometime around August, she seemed to discover that clothes could actually complement her figure, rather than just drape over it like a canvas tarp. The skirts became shorter, the blouses tighter, the heels noticeably higher. The phone situation, honestly, should have been my primary red flag. Bethany had always been the type to forget her phone existed, leaving it charging in the bedroom, missing calls for hours on end. But suddenly, it was glued to her palm, an inseparable extension of her arm. She'd received texts during dinner and actually checked them, an unthinkable act just 6 months prior. And the calls, they consistently started around 9 p.m., just as we'd settle in to watch whatever mindless reality show was supposed to pass for evening entertainment. Bethany would glance at her screen, frown as if receiving urgent presidential directives, and excuse herself to take the call in the kitchen. "I can't talk long," she'd whisper, and I'd strain to catch snippets, pretending to be absorbed in the TV. "No, he's right here. I know. Tomorrow, okay? Same time." When I'd casually inquire who was calling so late, she'd wave it off with a practiced, nonchalant air. "Oh, just Mom. You know how she gets when she can't sleep." Or, "Olivia's having trouble with her husband, Mark, again." Right, because Bethany's mother, who adhered to a strict 8 p.m. bedtime like a military sergeant, was suddenly battling chronic insomnia. And Olivia, who would rather endure a root canal than discuss her marital issues with anyone, had apparently transformed into a relationship guru. But the most damning evidence was what I noticed about our pool. Every single day I'd return home from work, usually around 6 p.m., and that pool would be absolutely immaculate. Not merely clean, but picture perfect, like something straight out of a glossy lifestyle magazine. The chemical levels were balanced with the precision of someone holding a PhD in aquatic chemistry. I know pool maintenance. It's a genuine chore, requiring a minimum of 2 hours of dedicated work. You have to meticulously test chlorine levels, adjust the pH, clean the skimmers, vacuum the bottom, and brush the walls. Bethany always treated pool maintenance like handling biohazardous waste, complete with dramatic sighs and endless complaints. Yet somehow, it had been pristine every single day for months. I decided it was time to play hooky and catch my cheating wife in the act. The plan was deceptively simple. I'd leave for work Friday morning as usual, drive to the coffee shop about a mile away, wait until Bethany's car pulled out, then circle back and park down the street for covert surveillance. Friday morning began like any other day in our suburban purgatory. Bethany was up at 6:45 a.m., meticulously going through her elaborate beauty routine, which had somehow expanded from 20 minutes to a full hour and a half. I made coffee, pretended to be engrossed in sports news, and listened to her moving about upstairs, as if preparing for a high-fashion photo shoot. "Big presentation today?" I asked when she finally came downstairs, looking absolutely flawless. "You know how it is," she said, carefully avoiding my gaze as she grabbed her purse. "The Vega account is always demanding, and Mr. Henderson wants everything absolutely perfect." She gave my cheek a quick, distracted peck, a gesture about as passionate as a business handshake, and headed for the garage. The coffee shop served as the perfect base for Phase 1. Large windows offering a clear view of the street, reliable Wi-Fi, and coffee strong enough to keep me hyper-alert. Bethany's silver sedan passed by at precisely 8:20 a.m., right on schedule. At 9:35 a.m., that same sedan came cruising back through the intersection, moving slowly, as if someone was ensuring the coast was absolutely clear. Time for Phase 2. I parked 4 houses down, concealed behind a colossal oak tree that offered impeccable cover while granting me an unobstructed view of our driveway. At exactly 9:45 a.m., a dark gray sports coupe, definitively not Bethany's sedan, pulled into my driveway. Out stepped the most stereotypical piece of human garbage I had ever encountered. A man in his early 30s, a gym rat with an artificially perfect physique, clad in a shirt so tight it might as well have been spray painted on, showcasing muscles clearly never used for actual labor, only for posing in bathroom mirror selfies. He walked up to our front door like he owned the place, punching in our security code, the one I'd chosen because it was Bethany's birthday, with the casual confidence of someone who had done it 100 times before. The front door opened even before he finished entering the numbers. Bethany appeared, throwing her arms around this insufferable man like he was a war hero returning from a perilous mission. They kissed right there in our doorway, not a quick, chaste peck, but a full-on, grab-each-other's-faces movie star embrace that made my vision blur with rage. Then they vanished inside my house for about 10 excruciating minutes, while I sat in my truck, feeling as if I'd been pummeled by a professional heavyweight boxer. At 9:57 a.m., they re-emerged from the back door, stepping onto our deck. Bethany was wearing a tiny, expensive-looking red bikini I'd never seen, the kind worn by women who crave attention, not by wives supposedly stressed about design reviews. Mr. Marvelous had stripped down to his designer swim trunks, which probably cost more than I made in a day, carrying an expensive bottle of craft beer and strutting around like he was starring in his own music video. He dove into my pool as if it were his own private oasis. The pool I had saved for, meticulously planned, sweated over, spent countless weekends maintaining, and poured countless dollars into heating. This steroid-enhanced pretty boy was now doing laps in my water as if it were his personal Olympic training facility. Bethany gracefully slipped in after him, and I watched them splash around like giddy teenagers at a summer camp, laughing and swimming up to each other for underwater kisses that churned my stomach. The most agonizing part, they looked genuinely, ecstatically happy, a happiness Bethany and I hadn't shared in years. She was animated, playful, somehow younger, as if this buffoon had found a remote control to her personality and cranked the brightness to maximum. Julian Miles. I remembered him now from Bethany's office holiday party last year. Some personal trainer who had spent the entire evening flexing his biceps through conversations and hitting on anything in a skirt. I had dismissed him as harmless, just another gym rat with more muscles than brains. Apparently, I had been utterly wrong about the harmless part. That night, Bethany came home at exactly 6 p.m., looking perfectly normal and completely innocent. She kissed my forehead, asked about my day, and started preparing dinner as if she were auditioning for Wife of the Year instead of Adulteress of the Century. "How was work?" she asked, stirring something on the stove. "Fine," I replied, watching her flawlessly execute this domestic charade. "How about you?" "Oh, you know," she said with a dismissive wave. "Same old Vega account drama. Nothing too exciting." "Nothing too exciting?" "Right. Just an afternoon playing house with her personal trainer in our backyard while I was supposedly safely at work, none the wiser. I had seen enough to know this wasn't just a fleeting affair. This was a complete, utter betrayal of everything we had painstakingly built together, carried out in my own home with my own belongings, while I worked my ass off to pay for it all. Here's what 15 years in construction teaches you, and here's a subtle call to action for you. If you're building something, make sure your foundation is strong. If you're watching this and feel like your own foundation might be crumbling, or you're just looking for more thrilling stories of life's unpredictable twists, hit that subscribe button. Your support keeps these real-life dramas coming. Now, back to my plan. If you want to properly demolish something, you'd better know precisely where to place the charges. Rush the job and you'll end up buried under the rubble. But take your time. Meticulously study the structure, identify the weak points, and you can bring down the entire damn building exactly where and when you want it. I called in sick for the first time in 3 years and spent the entire morning at the local electronics store purchasing surveillance equipment. I bought 6 miniature cameras about the size of USB drives, capable of recording in 4K resolution with audio for up to 12 hours. I also picked up a powerful wireless router booster and a 2 terabyte external hard drive. I spent the afternoon strategically placing the cameras around the house like a demented Easter bunny. One in the living room, cleverly hidden behind a picture frame. Another in the kitchen, camouflaged behind the coffee maker. One in the master bedroom, inside a digital clock. And 2 cameras providing a perfect, unobstructed view of the pool area. But for the truly damaging stuff, I knew I needed professional help. I called my old college friend, Marcus Thorne, who owed me a significant favor from our wilder days. Marcus had a background in law enforcement before going private, specializing in marital infidelity cases. "Arthur Vance, you old dog," he chuckled when he picked up. "Please tell me you're not calling because you need bail money." "Worse," I replied, a grim smile playing on my lips. "I need a private investigator who doesn't ask too many questions about methodology." We met at O'Malley's pub, and I laid out the entire sordid story while Marcus listened intently without interrupting, occasionally jotting down notes. "You need documentation," he said when I finished, his voice calm and professional. "Photos, videos, financial records, communication logs, but we also need to follow the money trail. I'm betting your wife's been liberally spending marital assets on him." Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus earned his hefty fee like a champion. While I diligently gathered video evidence of their Tuesday and Friday pool parties, he uncovered a financial devastation that made my stomach drop. Bethany had been systematically using our joint credit cards to finance her affair for months, treating Julian to lavish dinners at restaurants I couldn't even afford to look at, buying him designer clothes from boutiques I'd never heard of, and even paying for a weekend getaway that cost more than I made in an entire month. "Now look at this," Marcus said, pointing to a stack of credit card statements spread across his desk. "Romantic dinner at The Gilded Spoon, $350. New athletic wear from Zenith Athletics, $450. Weekend at the Cascading Falls Resort, $2,500. But the real bombshell was revealed in the property records. 3 months ago, Bethany had attempted to take out a second mortgage on our house for $120,000. The paperwork listed the contractor for the supposed home improvements as Holt Fitness Solutions LLC, which was, of course, Julian's business. Bethany hadn't merely been having an affair, she had been meticulously planning to financially ruin our marriage to fund her new life with him. Bank records show Bethany has been systematically moving money from your joint savings to a private offshore account, Marcus continued, his voice grim. "She's siphoned off approximately $18,000 over the past 6 months. But I wanted more than just irrefutable evidence. I wanted satisfaction. That's when inspiration struck, from my nephew Leo's ridiculous science project. Leo had been raising a colony of exotic axolotl larvae, and his mom, my sister, was practically begging someone to take them off her hands before they completely overran her house. I, with a mischievous grin, volunteered to solve her problem. Friday morning, I waited for Bethany to leave, then set up my amphibian surprise. I relocated Leo's entire collection, plus additional axolotls and newts from 3 different exotic pet stores, to my meticulously maintained pool. When Julian arrived for his usual morning session and, with his typical arrogance, dove in without so much as glancing at the water first, the primal scream that erupted from him was worth every single penny I'd spent. Picture a fully grown man bursting from the water with half a dozen slimy axolotls clinging desperately to his chest and dozens of wriggling newt larvae stuck to his perfectly sculpted back. Pure, unadulterated terror contorted his face as he thrashed around, while the larger axolotls, looking like miniature, slow-motion predators, casually swam after him. Bethany shrieked in mortification as her traumatized lover scrambled out, slipped on a particularly large newt, and went down hard on his perfectly sculpted backside. The absolute best part: he lost his expensive designer swim trunks to the murky depths and had to make his ignominious escape wrapped only in my wife's flimsy beach towel and whatever remained of his shattered ego. But the fool, with an astonishing lack of self-preservation, came back the following Tuesday, acting as if nothing had happened. Time for a dramatic escalation. I upgraded our aquatic inhabitants. I visited Reptile Haven, an exotic pet store known for its unique collection. I acquired 3 snapping turtles, mean as hell, but ultimately harmless to humans, just extremely intimidating. 6 vibrant corn snakes, completely non-venomous, but terrifying enough to induce nightmares. And for the grand finale, a 2-foot baby caiman. When Julian, with his baffling confidence, dove in again the next Friday morning, the scream he emitted made the previous axolotl incident sound like a serene church choir. He was doing a hybrid freestyle panic stroke, desperately trying to avoid the snapping turtles while frantically swimming away from the corn snakes, until he reached the deep end and came face to face with the baby caiman, floating calmly like a miniature lake monster. The sound that escaped him wasn't even human. It was pure, unadulterated primal terror as he launched himself out of the pool like he'd been shot from a cannon, immediately crawling toward the house, while a particularly persistent snapping turtle followed him relentlessly. It took Bethany and him a full 45 minutes to clear the area, with Julian wrapped in multiple towels, shaking like a chihuahua in a thunderstorm. After a lengthy consultation with a retired Judge Elena Ramirez about legal strategy versus emotionally satisfying, albeit childish, revenge, I decided on a direct confrontation. No more animal surprises, just good old-fashioned showing up at precisely the right moment to deliver a calculated blow. The following Friday morning, I gave them 20 minutes to get comfortable in their poolside paradise. Then, I drove my truck right into our own driveway, parking it in a spot Julian couldn't possibly miss. I stepped out from the shadows by the tool shed as he was preparing for another arrogant dive. "Enjoying my pool, Julian?" I said, my voice cutting through the morning air across the deck with a calm authority that comes from finally holding all the cards. He froze at the water's edge, suddenly looking like a deer caught in headlights. Bethany gasped, nearly dropping her wine glass, her face draining of all color as she realized her meticulously guarded secret had been brutally blown wide open. "I'm not talking to you right now, honey," I said, cutting Bethany off as she began to speak. "I'm talking to your boyfriend who seems to think my pool is his personal playground." "Look, man," Julian stammered, attempting a casual tone, though his voice cracked noticeably. "This isn't what it looks like." "Really?" I stepped closer, pulling out my phone and opening the camera app. Because it looks an awful lot like you're about to go swimming in my pool, with my wife, using my towels, and drinking my wine. Color completely drained from his face as he realized I was recording. "I've been watching you two for weeks," I continued, my voice low and steady. "Photos, videos, timestamps, license plate numbers, the whole damn package. So here's what's going to happen. Stay away from my wife, stay away from my house, and most importantly, stay away from my life. Because if I ever see you here again, the next conversation won't be nearly as friendly." He was practically running by the time he reached his sports coupe, peeling out of the driveway like his life depended on it. And that evening, I meticulously arranged everything on our dining room table, like evidence in a courtroom. The surveillance photos, the financial records painstakingly documenting her theft, the meticulously prepared divorce papers Judge Ramirez had helped me draft. When Bethany saw what was spread across the table, her confident, composed demeanor crumbled like a house built on sand. I calmly walked her through each damning piece of evidence. The $350 dinner at the Gilded Spoon, the $450 in designer workout clothes delivered directly to Julian's apartment, the $2,500 resort weekend she'd claimed was a girls' trip to visit her sister, the attempted $120,000 mortgage fraud, the $18,000 stolen from our joint savings. "You've committed multiple felonies, Bethany," I said, watching her sob uncontrollably. "The only reason you're not in handcuffs right now is because I'm feeling incredibly generous." She signed the divorce papers with shaking hands, officially ending our marriage and granting me the house, the savings, everything I had worked so tirelessly for while she was busy destroying it all. 3 months later, I was standing in my backyard, watching vibrant koi fish swim peacefully in water that had never been clearer. I had completely demolished the pool and, in its place, built a serene Japanese garden with a modest koi pond. The pool had never truly been the problem. It was merely the stage upon which my marriage had tragically died. Bethany's downfall had been swift and absolute. The divorce left her with absolutely nothing. She was last seen living in a cramped studio apartment, working double shifts at a diner just to survive. Julian, her once glorious sugar baby, had vanished to another state once his sugar mama ran out of money. Just last week, Detective Davis called me. Bethany had been arrested for credit card fraud, apparently continuing her criminal career by using stolen account information. He asked if I still had documentation of the fraudulent charges she'd made during our marriage. I was naturally more than happy to assist their investigation. The garden has taught me a profound lesson, that even the most painful endings can blossom into something beautiful if you rebuild on your own terms. Every morning I sit by my tranquil koi pond, sipping my coffee, watching the fish navigate their small, peaceful world with an unwavering contentment. Sometimes, the most potent revenge isn't about grand gestures or dramatic showdowns. It's simply about living well, while the people who wronged you continue to destroy themselves piece by painstaking piece with their own choices. The old foundation of betrayal was gone, but a new, stronger one had been built. And that's the story, folks. A stark reminder that what's built on lies will always crumble. If you found this tale of betrayal and ultimate justice compelling, please give this video a thumbs up. And let me know in the comments below, what's the most shocking betrayal you've ever witnessed or experienced? Share your thoughts, and as always, subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories that prove truth is often stranger and more satisfying than fiction. See you in the next one.